All right. Hey, Chris.
What's up, Mike D?
Let's turn it up a little bit.
Where the future comes to scream.
All right.
Excellent.
Love that.
Lead in.
I just love hearing that sometimes. It just makes me
do
feel good.
I do too. I can't move my neck like that anymore. I think that's the reason I've got neck issues. It was all the head banging.
That's what happens. Getting old sucks. Let me just tell you. If you don't learn anything today, getting old.
Yeah,
sucks.
exactly. Just take that away and keep trying to live healthy.
Exactly. So we're excited to be back on the MedTech Jam session. We have a great guest today, Lawrence Buchan from Arbutus Medical. We're going to bring him on in a minute or two and let him tell his really amazing story, especially from such a young guy. But Chris, we were chatting before about there was a recent update. What was it? The orthopedic, what was it called?
The Ortho World Report.
The Ortho World Report. Give us a quick summation of the Ortho World Report, particularly around the size of the markets and growth and all that.
Yeah, so including everything that's musculoskeletal related, markets at about 65 billion. As we were talking earlier, it's like I remember back when COVID hit and 2021 came around, and I remember seeing the numbers and going, "Wow, we just crossed 50 billion." It doesn't feel like it's that long ago, but it's just shocking to see those numbers, with the projection even by 2030 to be 78 billion. And so it's running at about a CAGR of about 5%, it looks like, which is great.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of advances in many, many different areas of ortho, even some of the traditional ones that are becoming more regenerative approaches in nature. Everything is teeing up almost just so synergistically. It's crazy to think about it, because if you lead to the ASCs, for example, and all these technologies that are going to be able to be implemented in the ASCs less invasively than anything's ever been implemented anywhere. And you think about even like companies like Arbutus, okay? You look at what they're doing, that plays really well to an ASC, and of course hospitals too, because you want to play the whole market. But it's a great time. It's a really great time. People can look at the orthopedic market, the spine market, the sports med market, whatever, and you see challenges and everybody's dropping their spine lines and all these kind of things. And it's like, it's not going away. It's resetting. It's time.
I think resetting is a good term. This remains a really healthy market. The demographics are most certainly in our favor. New technologies with AI and, as you said, regenerative medicine, new opportunities and new problems are out there to be solved. It's a great time to invest. If you're a big company, don't be afraid to invest in your own portfolio and or invest in smaller startups who may be building your future portfolio for you. And if you're an investor, I know you might be excited about other spaces like AI and tech and stuff like that. This is still a very interesting and attractive market where you can get really very attractive returns for your investors.
Totally. And I think that's critical, because there's so much M&A movement that has jumped off the page in 2026. And so therefore liquidity events, come on investors, let's keep playing, let's keep going, relative to fortifying these companies that are bringing the disruption.
Yeah. Well, speaking of bringing the disruption, we have a great guest today, Lawrence Buchan from Arbutus Medical. You might be the world's youngest CEO.
I sure hope not. I think there's another generation of talent coming. But
I don't know, man. I was looking at your face, and you're like, the question that I think we all have is, what does it feel like to finally get your driver's license?
Well, I tell you what,
you're wearing it well, man. It's going to serve you well in about 20 years.
As a CEO, in about a week, you're going to look like this with this gray hair.
Well, if I get a walkout song like you guys have on MedTech Jam Session, then I've made it.
That's a good idea. We should create special walkout songs for our guests going forward.
That's
that
a
idea.
really good idea.
This is happening. Thank you,
And
Lawrence.
it stays with you for the duration of the business.
Yeah,
And then when you start the next one, now that you're a serial entrepreneur, you get an update.
there you go.
Big home run swings only. Yeah.
Well, Lawrence, all joking aside, congratulations on the progress you guys have made with Arbutus. We've seen you on the stage and MNBC at the Academy. It feels like you're everywhere. You guys have just closed a big round. I mean, you've accomplished a lot in a short amount of time. For our listeners and for us, really, why don't you just take us back to day one and what were you thinking?
Yeah, well, happy to answer that. I guess before we jump in, thanks for having me on. As we were talking before, it's cool to listen to this show and get to share our story. So that's neat. Yeah, I'll start. So my background is technical. I'm trained as a mechanical engineer, went into biomedical engineering. I'm always focused on orthopedic research. I think probably like most in this space, grew up playing sports, found the orthopedic surgery side of my research some of the most fascinating. And I was lucky to get involved at the University of British Columbia here in Vancouver, where I'm from, with the orthopedic trauma department. And interestingly, they're doing a lot of capacity building work for humanitarian purposes. They're spending a lot of time in East Africa, Kampala, Uganda specifically. And what they wanted to do was train residents to treat all the patients in need. Tremendous burden if you've traveled for personal reasons or whatnot in low resource settings. You see the roads can be crazy. Population is growing so rapidly. A lot of accidents, a lot of orthopedic trauma, a lot of patients in need, and not enough surgeons. So the surgeons from Vancouver were successfully helping develop this orthopedic residency program to put more doctors throughout the country in Uganda and treat all these patients in need. They quickly started to see, I guess, that access to equipment was a big bottleneck. They came to us and wanted to adapt DeWalt drills for use in surgery to improve access to surgical power specifically. But we did that. Sort of one thing led to another. Had a product taken to market, used now in 40 countries, and what we estimate to be 150,000 surgeries. We found a natural sort of segue into the U.S. market, which I'm happy to share more about. And our business is growing here, but it's been sort of a tale of just trying to solve a problem and do some good and evolve along the way based on what the market's been telling us.
That's what an amazing story to experience that level of need that acutely and then to respond in kind is great. So what products did you build for those African sort of low resource markets and what was the result?
Yeah, well, the very first iteration of our technology was, if you can imagine a dry bag that you might take kayaking, we made a surgical drape similar to a dry bag. We developed a sterilizable chuck that can be inserted through that bag to connect with an off-the-shelf DeWalt drill. So in the first version of this development cycle, we walked with the surgeon physically to Home Depot, played with all the 12-volt power screwdrivers and lithium-ion battery-powered drills on the shelf there. Found a model that made sense. Subsequently forged a bit of a partnership with DeWalt, Stanley Black & Decker, the parent co. We're able to take that to market. We saw that, I guess, there were applications for that product in a lot of different contexts. So for the first few years, we're very focused on having that product used by surgeons in low resource settings. We started to get interest from military field medicine teams deployed in forwards settings that needed to have reliable, robust equipment that would also pack down to a pretty small weight and volume footprint so that they could deploy these field surgery teams into conflict zones and for disaster relief. Same sort of thing for NGOs. So groups like Doctors Without Borders would approach us and have a need for product in their field hospitals around the world. But so that's been very successful. We in terms of doing good and improving access to equipment for surgeons around the world that might not have access to a Stryker System 9 or the capital available to outfit their hospital for just the volume of trays that they might need to handle a high volume of patients. We had an interesting sort of segue. That was an Air Force surgeon that had seen our product used downrange and said, we need this at home at our level 1 trauma center. This is a major level 1 trauma center in Baltimore for use in the emergency department. And that sort of kicked off a broadening, I guess, of what Arbutus does and took us towards where the business is today.
That's great. I'll tell you, it's such a fascinating idea, especially for the fact of, and you hit on something of empowering with all the challenges that we're dealing with from a surgeon access, a surgeon availability standpoint. It's interesting that with not only the institution that you were talking about out of Vancouver and the work they're doing to bolster that, but to have the technology to go along with it, right, that you guys have created. When I look at the market today, are you contractually doing anything with the U.S. Department of Defense, or is that a thought process? I guess it's Department of War now, but maybe expand on that for a minute.
Yeah, we do with that original technology, we do actively supply field, I guess, forward surgical teams, if you will, and we've supplied the Department of War now and the Canadian Armed Forces as well, and a few other military teams around the world.
Hi, everybody. Mike Donahue here. As a medtech leader, you know how important it is to hit the ground running when your new product clears FDA. You need to quickly align and equip your field sales team with training, customer targeting, sales assets, and operational resources that will maximize revenue and traction. Well, at Convey Med, we have the app for that. Convey Connect is the mobile-first launch operating system that ensures your field team is clinically confident, culturally aligned, and operationally efficient from day one. With your customized, white-labeled Convey Connect app, your reps can train on the go, access agentic AI to identify ideal customer targets, query AI agents to provide intelligent answers to clinical and technical questions from your customers, communicate and engage with both company leadership as well as your teammates in the field, and then just so much more. So if you are interested in learning more about Convey Connect, go to our website, conveymed.io, where you can book a demo and we'd be happy to take you through the app. And now back to the show.
There's a common thread today. I guess our business is primarily focused on civilian hospitals, stateside, level 1 trauma center emergency departments. But the common thread that we've seen, I guess, in this journey of this business is, to your point, there's a lot of patients that go to our biggest hospitals. And I think we've all seen over the last decade this pretty significant wave of decentralization of surgery, migration of cases to the ASC. And actually, we see some patterns, similarities, if you will, between surgery and any kind of decentralized setting where surgeons don't always have access to the equipment or instrumentation that they need. They're not always prepared in that site of care to handle a high volume of cases. There's difficult access to sterile processing. You might not have the ability to turn trays around quickly. You might have financial constraints or physical space or storage constraints to store all the inventory you might need to handle, whether it's a mass casualty event or just a high case volume. So we've had to pick one. I think that's a startup lesson. There's a lot of context we just talked about. We've seen and uncovered what I think to be a pretty interesting underserved set of problems specific to the emergency department of civilian hospitals. That's where we're focused today. We find that whenever a surgeon has to do a minor procedure in those settings, common thing, and this happened organically. We learned about this from a surgeon at Shock Trauma in Baltimore. Said whenever we want to do a procedure, and particularly they talked to us about skeletal traction. They said whenever we want to do a skeletal traction procedure in our trauma bay, the first thing that happens is a scavenger hunt for supplies because we don't have everything outfitted for us in the emergency department. So they would send residents and nurses to go run for a tray of power, 2 or 3 other trays, pin tray, Kirshner bow, wires, call for a special bed to be brought to that trauma bay. Incredibly inefficient for that hospital. It turns out we started asking a whole bunch more facilities across the country what else they struggle with. And it's a bit of a systemic issue. Leads to inefficiency. So while that scavenger hunt's kind of happening, the patient's tying up a bed in the emergency department or the trauma bay. The bed is incredibly costly to the hospital. Some of the health economics literature puts that about $20 a minute. Wow. They're draining resources from the OR. They're burdening sterile processing as well unnecessarily with a lot of complex trays being used for, at the end of the day, what's a very simple case. So we've been looking at that set of problems in the emergency department and are building a portfolio now focused on streamlining all bedside procedures that an orthopedic trauma service and now increasingly hand surgeons will need to do in the emergency department. So to your question, I guess, Mike, about the potential field medicine applications, it's definitely something that we continue to look at and serve. But we've really had to focus on the emergency department in the last few years and seeing a lot of success there, I guess.
And with that, it's interesting because with that model and how you're targeting, do you have to deal much with the VAC committees?
Great question. Absolutely. It's interesting how you're speaking at the beginning of the introduction about the growth of the orthopedic device market. In our space, we found really a bunch of underserved problems that procedure surgeons are doing that they really haven't been solved before. So that creates an interesting challenge. We come with a solution. Typically, we start chatting with the orthopedic trauma service, and when we come to the table with a more efficient solution, it's clear they want this. We've had to then make the ask for the hospital to spend, more on a solution they were otherwise, in theory, paying zero for.
Right.
But it's highly inefficient. And so our work and what we've come to realize in working with these hospital partners is the cost of that inefficiency is actually pretty significant. And it's often borne by the emergency department in large part.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time now with emergency department administrators, which I think is pretty uncommon, I guess, for orthopedic companies. And what I hear when I ask what their priorities are, every single one says efficiency and throughput are my top priorities. And so there's this interesting connect the dots exercise that we have to run before we go to value analysis committees, where the emergency department might not be aware the extent to which this workflow problem is happening behind the scenes. So we bring the orthopedic residents or trauma service to the emergency department to explain this workflow challenge and help the emergency department see that this is costing us. This is totally slowing down their ability to turn over beds. That's incongruent with our strategic priorities for this department every single day. And we had, just to give you a soundbite, when we spoke to a senior emergency department leader at Harborview Medical Center, he said, if we could save 6 minutes per patient, that would be like freeing up a whole bed for a year. So that was really eye-opening for me. That's the kind of fidelity that matters. 6 minutes, right? So you take a workflow that surgeons are doing on consult in the emergency department and help them win back 45 minutes, potentially plus, and stack that up over 6 or 7 patients in an evening over a busy holiday weekend where they're slammed with trauma. That's a pretty impactful change. So if we could tell that story to value analysis and help them see the bigger picture, then typically that's what's successful.
Yeah, it sounds like a compelling argument. I love how you guys are building your portfolio directly with your customers.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that. I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, well, as you can kind of derive from the story, right? We didn't set out to specifically solve this problem. We had directionally, we wanted to improve access to care and help make care more efficient so that everybody could receive their care. We wanted to help lots of patients, but we started out with a very specific technology and sort of naturally learned about this initially skeletal traction workflow problem at shock trauma. And I think what we did in retrospect at the time, as a startup, you're fighting for your life, right? You're constantly thinking about where your focus needs to be, where you're going to find that right product market fit. You're trying to survive long enough or endure, to find that product market fit. So that's kind of the undercurrent to my answer here. But what we did a good job with, credit to the team I work with, that was just asking the customers and getting pretty good at listening quite objectively. Like we did not hold on too tight to any idea of a solution for these customers. In that first instance with the surgeon that explained the skeletal traction workflow problem, what they really wanted to do was just buy our drill cover technology to solve the sterile power tool portion of that workflow. But as we started to spend more time with them, we would ask why, right? Why do you want this? What are your goals? Walk us through the patient workflow. We started getting good at asking, I think, questions that revealed this isn't the whole problem. What they really are looking for is a streamlined workflow. And so we started asking the question of other facilities, do you struggle with the same issue? And that pattern was sort of clear nationwide. And then we have been asking, what else do you struggle with? And we're still doing that. We do that every time we're in a facility. We're asking, what other bedside procedures are inefficient because you, the surgeon, you don't have available to you what you need. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're stocking some convenience kits that are filled with generic supplies, but that don't provide those surgeon preference items you need to do an adequate job. Mm-hmm. And what happens when you don't have those instruments available to you? Walk me through your workflow. And we're uncovering like quite a long list now of procedures, all simple from a surgical perspective, but with incredibly complex workflows where there's a lot of inefficiency. And it's sort of formulaic. Like patient comes in, surgeon doesn't have what they need, run to the OR, borrow trays. In many places, we've all walked around a lot of hospitals.
Oh, yeah.
I have a hard time finding how to get from the parking lot to where I need to meet, right? Wherever.
And they're like mazes.
And you're a resident, you're rotating through, you're PGY2, you're rotating through 5 different hospitals, your first week on trauma rotation. And now you've got to figure out, like, not only how do I get to the operating room, but then how do I negotiate with this OR coordinator to lend me a $30,000 asset that then I'm going to carry downstairs, and they're going to, take everything I own if I don't get this power tool back to the OR inventory where it might be needed to do a big revenue generating case for the hospital.
Yeah.
So that sort of formula has shown up time and again, actually more than I could have anticipated. So now kind of where we are, our customer base has grown substantially. In the US, we're almost at 100 hospitals now. We'll hit that this quarter. And
impressive.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Everyone requires a ton of work. So
if you can, hit on a point that I think is worth digging into a little bit. If you included field hospitals and no matter where it is on the globe, right? How many different types of, we'll call it locations, are you in?
We've had our products used in, let's start with a hospital in a low resource setting. So it's a resource constrained facility, let's say in a low income country. We've had our products used in field hospitals deployed both for conflict and for disaster relief. We've had our products used in a procedure room. So a minor procedure room in a hospital facility here in North America, let's say, where they're treating patients under local anesthetic. Hand surgery, the distal extremities, you use the procedure room pretty frequently in orthopedics. There's a really growing wave, what's called wide awake surgery. Mm-hmm. Being, if you've got limited OR time, do we really need to use the OR, a full sterility anesthesiologist, the five or six people in that room to do a minor procedure, extensor tendon repair, fingertip revision amputation? And so they're starting to do those procedures in a minor procedure room setting where, if they have a kit to streamline the workflow, a space, they can do these procedures themselves. Mm-hmm. So emergency departments, sometimes skeletal traction pins are placed in ICUs. And the ASC is one place where we think these capabilities translate to. That's a commercial focus yet, with our roadmap just being focused so acutely on trauma that typically presents to the level 1 trauma centers. But all very similar.
That's great.
Well, you've successfully raised a round recently, and where are you guys going now? Are you scaling the company? Are you adding to your team? Combination of working on your pipeline. Kind of where are you going in the next 18 to 24 months?
Yeah, we're commercial. So I mentioned close to 100 hospitals now, and just about 2/3 of those are the level 1 trauma centers. So our first product, a track pack for streamlining skeletal traction, is progressing really nicely. That's over a quarter of the level 1 trauma centers in the US. So there's a couple of things here. We think it's a product that's needed by emergency departments across the country. So we're scaling our commercial team right now to further develop sort of each regional market. And that's really the top priority investment is growth of our commercial team right now to handle that growing scale. A second thing we're doing is we invest a lot in education. These are resident-led procedures. So like I mentioned before, complex workflows are really tricky when you're in a level 1 trauma center, academic medical center. There's tons of different individuals rotating in and out, like touching this workflow. So we put a lot of energy behind making sure that there's good education around the workflow for every stakeholder in this facility so that it can become the go-to workflow. And then we support these residency programs so that junior residents can have a really awesome training experience when they come in. So we're putting a lot of investment to the education program. We're early stages now for launching sales of our second procedure kit, which launched just over a year ago for fingertip revision amputations based on the need that was spotlighted by these same programs. So now we've got 11 of our TrackPack customers also have adopted the second product, and that's growing quite quickly. So we're investing in commercialization of that second product and development of additional products so that it's a total portfolio to assist with all of these adjacent problems that we've identified. And that's neat. So we really focus on trying to be a problem-solving partner, I guess, for the emergency departments that we work with. So they kind of buy into the idea, and now it's our job to develop products quickly that we can get into market that help them with adjacent workflow issues they face.
And as you continue to develop this, and of course the market never is stagnant, the way things are shifting. And I'm watching a trend right now, and I don't know if you're picking up on it, but it's another location, and it's about becoming in office. It's getting bigger and bigger. So it's like you've gone from the behemoth hospital, ASCs exploding, and now in office type procedure opportunities. Is that something that could be part of your game plan?
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you, I mean, we see the facility payments, there's a lot of downward pressure on hospitals. So OR time is a constraint, especially we spend time with hand surgeons now working with hand trauma procedures. So we have a fingertip revision amputation kit. We can also help programs with nail bed repair. And our capabilities, I guess, have expanded beyond power tools. So we can do handheld single-use instruments made from recyclable plant-based plastic too. So we just naturally, that's actually starting to happen. We've got a lot of hand surgeons talking to us about their office-based practice. And I had one just to give you a flavor of it. I think it's a really compelling value proposition just to move procedures out of the operating room into to lower cost site of care overall for us, like for everyone. Right. The surgeon said I had a wait list of 6 months. I was able to open up an office-based procedure practice. In this case, it was a procedure room in the facility, but they were able to reduce their wait list and you cut it in half. So take the folks with minor procedures that could be treated safely and efficiently in an office and get them treated faster. That surgeon was able to increase overall RVUs per OR block, increase total RVUs because now there's an additional day of cases being done in this minor procedure room. And for some of these cases too, it's a way better patient experience.
100%.
You drive home, you don't have the risks associated with general anesthetic. You get to have a personal engagement with the surgeon. With certain types of soft tissue procedures, the surgeons can verify that the procedure has worked live. It's pretty neat. And then when you add on all the cost savings for the system, I think that makes a lot of sense. So we are seeing that definitely as a growth area for the company.
What's interesting is that with the ladies and gentlemen out there that are the residents, okay, and you just hit on something that made me think, if you think about these residents, if you thought about your total user base, we'll call it surgeons, non-resident, and residents, okay, what is that user base mix? Is it 80% residents, 20% surgeons? What have you analyzed that?
Yeah, so at least with the way that the current business is set up, we're serving trauma procedures, which are 85% of those procedures are going to a level 1 trauma center. That's typically affiliated with the residency program, and it's always residents doing those procedures. with some exceptions. So there,
Yeah.
in certain instances, there's PAs, and some smaller community hospitals might be the surgeon themselves. But the vast majority of these minor bedside procedures are performed for the current products in our portfolio are performed by residents.
So by default, you've created an annuity program.
That's correct, and I think what we hope is that these residents that become attendings throughout the country kind of now know that there's a more efficient way for their hospital to do things, and that's
once they've had it and once they've experienced it, they're never going to not want to have it.
Yeah, they're going to go to their new hospital and be like, "Wait a minute, you don't have Arbutus in-house? I've got to go out and chase down all this gear to do a simple case. What are we doing here, guys?"
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And there's another interesting dynamic there, I think, and this is what I love. I think has been part of our magic from the beginning. I didn't realize it as much early on, but we've really leaned into these greenfield spaces. So we go after procedures where there is no industry partner, right? Like this is a problem that's been neglected. So many of these, well, just about all of these programs, we're the first industry partner that they've had for skeletal traction, for fingertip revision amputations. The attending surgeon was the education at, let's say, resident turnover time when the new interns come in, there's all of the lift is on their shoulders. So now that we can be the industry partner for the workflow, we can also be that partner for them for improving and optimizing that resident education experience. I mean, at the end of the day, the world-class pelvic surgeon doesn't always, have the time to go help junior residents with a perfectly optimized skeletal traction education program. And that makes sense to me. So we come in, we do some of the dirty work to build things like animations, and we'll sponsor cadaver labs and stuff like that to help make sure that they have an excellent experience sort of from day one. And I think that's valuable to residents who are sometimes can be the first procedure that they'll do as the sort of primary actor. And so we want them to succeed and look good and get access to those cases in the OR and that kind of thing.
That's
great.
That's awesome.
So Lawrence, you're a first-time founder. You're wise beyond your years, I will have to say. Tell us, what advice would you have for other entrepreneurs, founders out there as they are building and trying to scale and out there in the arena fighting the fight? What advice would you have?
Well, I'll just say I get uncomfortable when I get asked to provide advice like that, because anybody who knows me, I have the most imposter syndrome you could imagine. So I'll just say what's worked for me, and folks can decide if this works for you or not. But what's been foundational to I think the through line for our business is we started off really like aspiring to make a difference, a positive difference for patient care. And in our case, that was in improving access to surgical care in places where it might not be accessible, and also to improve efficiency so that we can treat this massive volume of patients. Like there's a math problem that we face in healthcare in general with the number of people that need to get treated and the cost that it's currently taking. So I'm very personally motivated around that problem, and so is everybody in our team. And so that, I think, is foundational. Like a higher purpose has served us really well. And I think that goes kind of hand in hand with then being able to endure. Like in startups, it's never a straight line, and ours is especially squiggly. But we were able to survive, I guess, through all of the challenging points in time to hang in there long enough for for it to become clear how the market wants us to influence that big problem. Like what specifically are we good at and that we can do that nobody else can? That wasn't clear to me initially. Now it is clear, but I think being able to endure all the shit through that time and hang in long enough for that to become clear is it's really hard. So having that, I guess, mix of grit and also like something to aspire to at a higher level is really key. Bill Hunter of Canary is somebody I look up to, talked about that. Survive long enough to kind of see where your technology might intersect with the market and get the right timing. I think that's key. And then I think I talked about listening. Like we've become really, really good at, I would say, at asking questions of the market to help the market inform what value our company should be delivering.
Yeah.
And asking, for me personally, it's been asking questions of people who've done this before that have real scar tissue that I'm trying to avoid. And it's hard to get to do that, because sometimes you get advice that you may not agree with, or maybe you don't want to hear. So I think we've done an okay job at just, sometimes you just have to suspend disbelief and say, oh, that person's done this before. I don't necessarily immediately see it, but I'm actually going to do what they told me to do and see if it works or not. And that's been a hard muscle that we've had to train it over time. I have. And there's a couple of things in there which I could go on long about, like from a psychoanalysis perspective, but you need to have like a lot of humility to drop your ideas, right? And just look at things objectively. Like, what does the market need? What does this business need? What do I need to drop my identity at the door and say, like, what do I need to be for this company in this moment? And that's hard. Like, I'm not saying I did all of that right, but those are the things. And then if you're like at a career stage like I am, and I don't have the industry experience under my belt that you guys have, that means that my pace has to be extremely high. So I have to learn at a rate that's faster than everybody else if we're going to succeed. So that's what's worked for me so far.
Yeah. And perseverance, you nailed it. Perseverance all the way.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent advice. And my friend, you are no imposter.
and I can see the humility, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. You just keep doing what you're doing, my friend. You're very successful. I have no doubt.
No doubt.
Lawrence, sounds like you guys are scaling and hiring and looking for talented people. Where, if people want to find Arbutus and Lawrence, where should they go, and who should they reach out to?
Yeah. So first of all, follow us on LinkedIn, Arbutus Medical, and online, arbutusmedical.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn directly. Reach out. We've got roles. We're hiring at a pretty good clip this year. We'll be growing from a team of about 17 at the start of the year to about 30. So we've got roles sort of in every department. The commercial team, I think, is a big growth thrust for us. So currently recruiting for regional sales manager roles, and we'll have some pretty exciting marketing roles opening up shortly. So it's a cool time, and I think if this resonates for you, then please reach out. Love you to join the journey.
Great. We love it. It's Buchan, ladies and gentlemen, CEO, founder of Arbutus Medical. Lawrence, thanks for joining. Man, it was great to hang out with you. We loved your story. We predict and expect great things from you going forward. And thanks again for joining. Everybody, thanks again for hanging out with us on this edition of the MedTech Jam Session with Chris and Mike D. We'll see you on the other side, and peace out.
Rock on.
Thanks for having me, you guys.